Wings of Fire by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Orientation. Part 3. Bangalore as a city was in direct contrast to Kanpur. In fact, I feel our country has an uncanny way of bringing out extremes in her people. I suppose it is because Indians have been both afflicted and enriched by centuries of migrations. Loyalty to different rulers has dulled our capacity for a single allegiance. Instead, we have developed an extraordinary ability to be compassionate and cruel, sensitive and callous, deep and fickle, all at the same time. To the untrained eye, we may appear colorful and picturesque. To the critical eye, we are but shoddy imitations of our various masters. In Kanpur, I saw pan-chewing imitations of Wajid Ali Shah, and in Bangalore it was replaced by dog-walking sahibs. Here too I longed for the depth and calmness of Rameshwaram. The relationship between the heart and the head of an earthy Indian has been eroded by the divided sensibilities of our cities. I spent my evenings exploring the gardens and shopping plazas of Bangalore. The workload at ADE during the first year of its inception was quite light. In fact, I had to generate work for myself at first, until the tempo gradually built up. Based on my preliminary studies on ground handling equipment, a project team was formed to design and develop an indigenous hovercraft prototype as a ground equipment machine, GEM. The team was a small working group comprising 4 persons at the level of scientific assistant. Dr. O.P. Medirata, director of the ADE, asked me to lead the team. We were given 3 years to launch the engineering model. The project was by any standards bigger than our collective capabilities. None of us had any experience in building a machine, let alone a flying machine. There were no designs or standard components available to begin with. All we knew was that we had to make a successful heavier-than-air flying machine. We tried to read as much literature as we could find on hovercrafts, but there was not much available. We tried to consult people knowledgeable in this area, but could find none. One day, I simply took the decision to proceed with the limited information and resources available. This endeavor to produce a wingless, light, swift machine opened the windows of my mind. I was quick to see at least a metaphorical connection between a hovercraft and an aircraft. After all, the Wright brothers made the first aeroplane after fixing bicycles for 7 years. I saw in the GEM project great opportunities for ingenuity and growth. We went straight into hardware development after spending a few months on the drawing board. There is always the danger that a person with my kind of background, rural or small town, middle class, whose parents had limited education, will retreat into a corner and remain there struggling for bare existence unless some great turn of circumstance propels him into a more favorable environment. I knew I had to create my own opportunities. Part by part, subsystem by subsystem, stage by stage, things started moving. Working on this project, I learned that once your mind stretches to a new level, it never goes back to its original dimension. At that time, V.K. Krishnamenon was the defense minister. He was keenly interested in the progress of our small project, which he envisioned as the beginning of the indigenous development of India's defense equipment. Whenever he was in Bangalore, he always found some time to review the progress of our project. His confidence in our ability ignited our enthusiasm. I would enter the assembly shop leaving my other problems outside, just as my father used to enter the mosque for prayer, leaving his shoes outside. But not everyone accepted Krishnamenon's opinion about GEM. Our experiments with the available parts and components did not exactly delight my senior colleagues. Many even called us a group of eccentric inventors in pursuit of an impossible dream. I, being the leader of the navies, was a particularly inviting target. I was regarded as yet another country bumpkin who believed that riding the air was his domain. The weight of opinion against us buttressed my ever-optimistic mind. The comments of some of the senior scientists at ADE made me recall John Trowbridge's famous satirical poem on the Wright brothers published in 1896. With thimble and thread, and wax and hammer, and buckles and screws, and all such things as geniuses use, 2 bats for patterns, curious fellows, a charcoal pot, and a pair of bellows. When the project was about a year old, Defense Minister Krishna Menon made one of his routine visits to ADE. I escorted him into our assembly shop. Inside, on a table, lay the GEM model broken down into sub-assemblies. The model represented the culmination of 1 year's untiring efforts to develop a practical hovercraft for battlefield applications. The minister fired one question after another at me, determined to ensure that the prototype would go into test flight within the coming year. He told Dr. Medurata, GEM flight is possible with the gadgets Kalam now possesses. The hovercraft was christened Nandi after the bull ridden by Lord Shiva. For a prototype, its form, fit and finish was beyond our expectation given the rudimentary infrastructure we possessed. I told my colleagues, here is a flying machine not constructed by a bunch of cranks but by engineers of ability. Don't look at it. It is not made to look at, but to fly with. Defense Minister Krishna Menon flew in the Nandi, overruling the accompanying officials concerned for his safety. A group captain in the minister's troop, who had logged in many thousands of flying hours, even offered to fly the machine to save the minister from the potential danger of flying with an inexperienced civilian pilot like myself, and gestured to me to come out of the machine. I was sure about my competence in flying the machine I had made, and therefore shook my head in negation. Observing this wordless communication, Krishna Menon dismissed the insulting suggestion of the group captain with a laugh and signalled to me to start the machine. He was very happy. You have demonstrated that the basic problems of hovercraft development are solved. Go for a more powerful prime mover and call me for a second ride, Krishna Menon told me. The skeptical group captain, now Air Marshal Gole, later became a good friend of mine. We completed the project ahead of schedule. We had a working hovercraft with us, moving on an air cushion of about 40 mm with a load of 550 kg, including the tear weight. Dr. Medurata was visibly pleased with the achievement. But by this time, Krishna Menon was out of office and could not take his promised second ride. In the new order, not many people shared his dream with regard to military applications of an indigenous hovercraft. In fact, even today we import hovercrafts. The project was mired in controversies and was finally shelved. It was a new experience for me. So far I had believed that the sky was the limit, but now it appeared that the limits were much closer. There are boundaries that dictate life. You can only lift so much weight, you can only learn so fast, you can only work so hard, you can only go so far.